So there's this odd phenomenon in biology called convergent evolution. That's when two species, despite being separated by millions of years or lots of branches on an evolutionary tree, independently develop similar characteristics. Think bats and birds both evolving similar wings, sharks and dolphins evolving toward the same streamlined swimming shape, or dolphins and bats both winding up with echolocation. And you can find one of the most unlikely examples of convergent evolution on the shoreline of Canada's east coast. In shallow waters with sandy bottoms, there are these schools of tiny, elongated, darting fish. Watch them for long enough and you'll actually start to see them dart in and out of the sand. That's where they get their name. These are sand lances. They're a widespread, popular bait fish, and also quite a chameleonic species, and I mean that literally. Sand lances have insanely specific convergent evolution with these guys. And it converges on their eyes. Just like a chameleon, sand lances are able to move each of their eyes independently. And that's already pretty wild, but not the end of the story. After all, pufferfish and seahorses do the independently moving eye thing as well. The connection between sand lances and chameleons goes much deeper. To understand how, we first have to look at how both of them hunt. Chameleons famously shoot out an extending tongue with extra sticky saliva to snatch insects. Sand lances, meanwhile, lurk in the sand, then dart out to snatch tiny copepods out of the water. They're very similar motions at equally blazing speeds. A chameleon's tongue and a sand lance strike both take around 100 milliseconds. That's only about as long as this flash. That speed means that both animals need to be super accurate at a distance, and that brings us back to their eyes. See, generally predators have both eyes closer to the front of their heads, while prey animals have their eyes closer to the sides. Why? Because eyes in the front allows for overlap of the visual fields and binocular vision, which lets your brain quickly judge distance from the difference between what each eye is seeing. The sacrifice being your field of view is narrowed. For a prey animal, it matters more to have nearly 360-degree vision to watch out for predators than to have better depth perception. But hold on, we have the sand lance and the chameleon both doing ridiculously accurate distance judgment at ridiculous speeds with independently moving eyes on the sides of their heads. So how do they do it? For one, they're able to manually adjust the focal plane of their eyes, letting them compare various layers in the environment to judge relative distance. But they likely also make use of an even more remarkable and subtle technique. In brief, the unique shape and layout of their eyes means that just rotating them has a parallax effect. See, objects at different distances move different amounts when we shift our perspective. That's parallax. Us binocular animals need to move side to side to make this happen. Just moving our eyes doesn't do it. But chameleon and sand lance eyes have a wider separation between their nodal point and their axis of rotation than most animals. And what that means is by just rotating their eye, they actually get a different perspective on what they're looking at. Maybe a helpful analog is closing one of your eyes and then the other, and seeing that objects shift a little bit relative to their distance. Sand lances can achieve that and use it to judge distance just by rotating one eye. And that gives them another huge advantage. Because they can do that distance calculation with just the tiny twitch of one eye, they can be amazing ambush predators, keeping almost perfectly still until the moment they strike. There's even more minutiae to the shared construction of chameleon and sand lance eyes. In fact, 10 specific parallels, like the relatively large focal length and therefore magnification of the image in each eye, or your classic deep convexiclivate fovea in the retina. But I guess the big question is, does it all work? Does this unique convergent evolution between these two very different animals demonstrably benefit their lightning-quick hunting technique? Well, as it turns out, that is one last thing they have in common. Under normal conditions, once a sand lance has committed to a strike, or a chameleon has committed to launching its tongue, as far as we can tell, they basically never miss. So, how's that for validation? Two animals that almost couldn't be further apart. One buried in the sand underwater, the other high in the branches of a tree. But a specialized hunting style brought them together in a completely unexpected and shockingly effective way. Convergent evolution at its finest. If you're enjoying these videos, consider throwing me a few bucks a month on Patreon. It is the best possible thing you can do to ensure that they will keep coming.